Good morning from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room. You are looking live at the Soyuz MS-21 spacecraft docked to the Prishal node module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Just about 19 minutes from now, springs on both sides of the docking interface holding Soyuz to its docking port will push off against one another, and the Soyuz will be free of the international complex. Its three cosmonauts on board strapped into their respective seats in the center section of the Soyuz, and the descent module will begin to fly away from the station, heading for a landing, a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 5:57 a.m. Central Time, 6:57 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. On board the Soyuz MS-21, the outgoing Expedition 67 commander, Oleg Artemyev, in the center of your crew portrait there, flanked to his left on the right side of your screen by flight engineer Denis Matveev, and on his right by Sergei Korsakov. They said goodbye to their Expedition 67 counterparts about 3 hours ago before entering their Soyuz spacecraft, closing the hatch to the Soyuz at about 11:22 p.m. Central Time, 12:22 a.m. Eastern Time. At that point, a series of leak checks were performed to ensure that we had a tight seal at the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Prishal module on the station side of the docking interface. The passageway or vestibule was depressurized. The three cosmonauts suited up in their Sokol launch and entry suits, and now are preparing for the final minutes before they undock to bring to an end officially Expedition 67. At the point of undocking, Expedition 68 will get underway under the command of European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti, who took over command of the station on Wednesday morning. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Very well from where you are now, guys, right? Yes, it's a multi-pacing effect. Okay, copy.
You're hearing the voice of an interpreter speaking to the crew on board the International Space Station's Soyuz spacecraft from flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. The three cosmonauts returning home to their landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan this morning will have completed 185 days in space, 2,960 orbits of the Earth, a mission encompassing 77 million statute miles. Oleg Artemyev, with his 185 days in space over Expeditions 66 and 67, will have accrued 551 days in space on his three flights, putting him 14th on the all-time list of space endurance records. Denis Matveev and Sergei Korsakov, of course, completing their first flights into space, 185 days. The trio of cosmonauts saw the arrival of 6 visiting vehicles and the departure of 7 visiting vehicles during their 6 months plus on board the International Space Station. Artemyev conducted 5 spacewalks during his time on board the International Space Station. He now has conducted 8 spacewalks in his career, putting him 11th on the all-time list of spacewalkers. Denis Matveev conducted 4 spacewalks during his time on board the station, totaling more than 26 hours of spacewalking time. A good view of the Soyuz MS-21 that was the first vehicle to dock to the new Prishal module that launched to the International Space Station some 10 months ago. Prishal is the bulbous node module at the bottom of your screen that is attached to the Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module. The multipurpose laboratory module serving soon, when it's fully activated and operational, as both a scientific lab and an airlock for Russian spacewalks. Once the command is given to open the hooks holding the Soyuz to the Prishal module, that undocking command scheduled about 13 minutes from now, it will take about 90 seconds for those hooks to open. Springs on both sides of the docking interface will push off against one another another, and the Soyuz will back away from the station, conducting 2 separation burns to open up a rate that will ultimately place the Soyuz vehicle a safe distance away from the space station for a 4-minute, 41-second deorbit burn at 5:03 a.m. Central Time, 6:03 a.m. Eastern Time, that will begin to allow the Soyuz to slow down, be captured by the Earth's gravitational pull, and enter the Earth's atmosphere for its descent back to a landing, parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. We'll talk more about landing preps in just a moment. Yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, saw the change of command ceremony in which Artemyev handed over command of the station to Samantha Cristoforetti, who soon will be in charge of Expedition 68. She is the new ISS commander and will be that for the next several weeks before the 4 crew members depart the International Space Station, at which time she will hand over command of the complex to Russian cosmonaut Sergei Prokopyev, who arrived on the station 8 days ago, along with Dmitry Petelin and NASA astronaut Frank Rubio. Let's take a look at that change of command ceremony that took place on Wednesday morning.
Саманта, держи ключ. Вот, держи его в чистоте. Да. А торт держи, чтобы крышечка была закрыта. Он золотой.
Spasiba, Alec. Thank you, Alec, for those words. And I think I speak on behalf of all our crew and saying how much we appreciated your leadership in the last months. Not only in getting a lot of work done, as you have already mentioned, but also with your warmth, with your generosity, with your lightheartedness. I think you have really helped us grow together, not only as a crew, as crew members and crewmates, but also, as you said, as one big space family. So thank you so much. To the rest of your Soyuz crew, Sergei, Denis, it's been such a pleasure and an honor serving with you on the International Space Station. And we wish you myaky посадки, soft landing in just a few hours, and successfully and smoothly getting back home to your family. To Chel and Farmer and Wadi, it's been just a joy and a pleasure and an honor being up here with you guys for the last months. And thanks for being such an amazing people, not just accomplished and competent crew members and individuals, but just amazing human beings. And I learn from each one of you every day, and I will continue to do so. So thank you so much. And it's been awesome to welcome the first crew members of the long duration expedition 68 that we have the honor to just get started as soon to be departing crew. So Dima, Frank, and Sergei P. Again, welcome to the International Space Station. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I think one of the most important tasks for us in the remaining time we have on orbit to really help you guys get your space legs, and then you will help us to welcome and help the remaining crew that of Expedition 68 that we will welcome on board very soon. We are just one tiny part of a gigantic team on the ground, so thank you so much to all the teams in Houston, in Huntsville, in Munich, in Tsukuba, in Moscow, for supporting and making sure that the International Space Station remains an amazing laboratory in space and a human outpost in low Earth orbit. Thanks to all the people in our respective space agencies. As an ESA astronaut, a European Space Agency astronaut, it's obviously an honor and a privilege to represent Europe in space on the ISS. And of course, as an Italian astronaut, it's especially an honor to represent Italy. So maybe just a few words in Italian. Grazie davvero all'Italia, a tutti gli italiani e alle italiane che mi hanno sempre supportata e seguito questa missione con con affetto. È un privilegio, un onore poter rappresentare l'Italia nello spazio, e se sono qui oggi è grazie al grande impegno e ai grandi risultati che il nostro Paese ha ottenuto, ottiene e continuerà ad ottenere in ambito spaziale. Oleg and everyone on the ground, thank you so much, and looking forward to getting Expedition 68 started.
Commander 67 departing. Commander, Expedition 68 arriving.
Welcome again.
And again, that was a replay of the change of command ceremony that took place on Wednesday morning. Samantha Cristoforetti of the European Space Agency, now the commander of the complex, Expedition 68, soon to begin just moments from now, following at the point of the undocking of the Soyuz MS-21 from the Prishal node module. We're about 6.5 minutes away from the undocking command that will begin the process of opening up the hooks, and at 2:34 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time, the Soyuz will push off from the Prishal node module and fly free of the International Space Station, backing away with 2 separation burns to be executed to move to a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn that will begin the trek home for Artemyev, Matveev, and Korsakov. In Kazakhstan, 2 staging cities are in play this morning for the landing operations. Karaganda, Kazakhstan is the initial staging city for the recovery operations by the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces. Helicopters flew earlier today from Karaganda to Zhezkazgan, the forward landing site for recovery operations. Those helicopters will be airborne in a sequential fashion from Zhezkazgan to the landing site at around the time of the deorbit burn. It will take about 35 minutes for those helicopters to arrive in a racetrack fashion around the landing site, and will land in sequential fashion to begin the recovery of the crew, the extraction of the crew from the descent module following touchdown.
I'm sending the command.
5 minutes away now from the undocking command. Here in Mission Control in Houston, the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers pulling the all-night shift in support of landing operations and looking over the shoulder of the new Expedition 68 crew. Expedition 68 to begin just minutes from now at the point of undocking of the Soyuz from the Prishal module. On console at this hour is Flight Director Mike Lammers. He is presiding over the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers. To his right is spacecraft communicator David Brenna, who will be talking to the space station crew when required during the course of this morning's operations. And of course, at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow in the town of Korolyov, Russian flight controllers in control of all of the Soyuz operations today as they watch the data on their consoles and are standing by for the undocking of the Soyuz through the point of the deorbit burn, and helping with all of the coordination of recovery operations by the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces on the ground at the landing site to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan.
РПВ-2 открыли, да?
Did you open RPV-2?
Да, открыт.
Yes, open.
Принято. Ну и РПВ-1 надо открыть, если нет.
Copy, and RPV-1 also can be opened.
Через
Okay.
The International Space Station currently flying 260 miles over eastern or western China, moving from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. 3 minutes until the undocking command is issued. And again, it will take about 90 seconds for the hooks to open and for springs on both sides of the docking interface to push off against one another to enable the Soyuz to back away from the Prishal node module.
It's prepared. Copy.
The Soyuz MS-21 with the 3 cosmonauts on board is docked to Prishal. That's the bulbous node module that you see at the top of your screen. And again, Artemyev, Matveev, and Korsakov wrapping up 185 days in space and 185 days aboard the International Space Station, almost 3,000 orbits of the Earth in a mission that will have spanned 77 million miles at the point of touchdown several hours from now. The landing, if all goes as planned, scheduled again at 5:57 a.m. Central Time, 6:57 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 4:57 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan, 2 hours 9 minutes before sunset locally.
$15 seconds until the D7 command. Copy. Please repeat your last. There is some noise. Let's power the SSVP.
Oleg Artemyev, the Soyuz commander, in the center seat of the center section of the 3-section Soyuz vehicle as the Soyuz commander. To his left as board engineer number 1 is Denis Matveev, and to his right as board engineer number 2, Sergei Korsakov.
Mechanical connection as well. Copy. Anton, we're go. Opening the hooks. Your go. 10:33:00.
And standing by for the undocking command to begin the opening of the hooks. That will take 90 seconds to complete.
Yes, to open the hooks.
And the hooks are driving.
Open the hooks. Hooks closed, LED is off. Inaudible. Electrical connection mated is off. Transfer hatch closed is on. We hear you better, but there's just a lot of noise in the lines.
This view now from the Soyuz external engineering camera. You will see the Soyuz backing away from the Prishal module just seconds from now.
Moscow Station, Space to Ground 1. Go ahead, Sergei.
And undocking confirmed.
Inaudible.
Undocking confirmed at 2:34 a.m. Central Time, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew 260 miles over eastern Mongolia. Expedition 67 on its way home. Expedition 68 formally underway.
Docking port is clear. Inaudible. Excellent. We're backing away. Backing away.
Экипаж МКС СУПУ Москвы в канале СГ-1 для Сергея.
Station Moscow, space to ground 1, for Sergei. Go ahead. Sergei.
Holding at 3 meters. Depot thrusters.
The pressure equalization valve, please put it in the closed position. Copy and in work. And this is for the pressure equalization valve of the node module. Standing by for depot thruster firing.
Once again, undocking occurring on time at 2:34 a.m. Central Time, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Soyuz now about to execute the first of 2 separation burns.
Depot thruster firing confirmed.
And we have the first of the 2 separation burns. You can see Soyuz beginning to accelerate on its way away from the International Space Station. And one correction, the duration of this mission is 195 days, not 185, 195 days, spanning 3,120 orbits of the Earth.
Depot thrusters firing confirmed.
And the second of the 2 separation burns underway, 15-second burn.
Inaudible. Station space ground 1. Yes, Sergei, go ahead.
The 3 cosmonauts are now beginning to accelerate their way away from the International Space Station, wrapping up 195 days in space and aboard the International Space Station that is now formerly under the command of Samantha Cristoforetti for Expedition 68. This view from the engineering camera on the outside of the Soyuz vehicle, looking at the International Space Station. Soyuz will move to a position well away from the station for the deorbit burn that is scheduled at 5:03 a.m. Central Time, 6:03 a.m. Eastern Time.
The status of the E1 LED, it is on. Then let's not put in the E1. Let's not touch the manifolds. Which manifold is selected now? Two manifolds. Copy.
Работаем пока по ССП, отключаем питание ССП.
Let's work with the SSVP, docking and internal transfer system. Let's unpower that. Okay, copy. I put in the 8 command. Docking probe. Copy. Let's turn off the floodlight. Turning off the floodlight. The floodlight is off.
Так, фару отключили, да? Рут транспортное положение.
You've turned off the headlight. That's correct. And the root translational hand controller is inaudible.
Дома есть переход на второй коллектор. Подтверждаете?
Dons, is there transition to manifold 2? Yes, confirmed. Yes, manifold 2 has been selected.
Root транспортное положение. Убираем.
Root should be in the transport position. Okay.
Aboard the descent module of the Soyuz MS-21, the Soyuz commander Oleg Artemyev, who will have accrued 561 days in space at the time of landing. Again, we corrected the mission duration. Mathematical error, operator error. It's now 195 days in space for these 3 cosmonauts, 561 days for Oleg Artemyev.
The parameters.
Artemyev is reconfiguring Soyuz systems in preparation for descent that will occur following the deorbit burn at 5:03 a.m. Central Time. That will be a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde maneuver, a braking maneuver, to slow the Soyuz down by about 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its ride back into the Earth's atmosphere and a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 5:57 a.m. Central Time, 6:57 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:57 p.m. Kazakhstan time, about 2 hours and 9 minutes before sunset.
И с INPU-2 можно выдать подкол ТВ. Действия в рамке.
On EMP2, you can put in the off command for TV. Copy.
Да, с INPU-2.
We're turning it off. That's correct. From turning the TV off from EMP2 display. Correct. That's a good readback. Copy.
Олег Георгиевич, проверьте медицинский пояс, что он подключен.
Oleg, can you please check your medical harness to make sure it's connected? Okay, stand by.
Station, space to ground 1. Yes, Sergei, go ahead on space to ground 1. The video is off on the Soyuz, so I propose that we turn off the recording on the station. Stand by, please.
Once again, the undocking of the Soyuz MS-21 occurring on time at 2:34 a.m. Central Time, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time. You see a view of the MS-21 spacecraft that arrived at the International Space Station back on March 18th with these 3 cosmonauts on board who became part of the Expedition 66 crew and then transitioned to Expedition 67 under the command of Oleg Artemyev, who is the Soyuz commander, at the controls for the Soyuz's deorbit burn and descent back to Earth. They are in the center section of that Soyuz vehicle. The bulbous portion at the forward part of the Soyuz is the orbital module, and at the rear, the solar arrays are attached to the instrumentation and propulsion module. The 3 segments, the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle will pyrotechnically separate from one another following the deorbit burn. The sequence of events call for the deorbit burn to begin at 5:03 a.m. Central Time. Again, that'll be a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde braking maneuver. The Soyuz will slow down, be captured by the Earth's gravity. About 28 minutes after the deorbit burn, the modules will separate from one another at an altitude of 140 kilometers just before the vehicle hits what is called entry interface at an altitude of some 400,000 feet above the Earth. About 2 minutes after atmospheric entry, temperatures around the Soyuz will build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat shield on the forward portion of the descent module will repel that heat. And then that exit from the plasma regime, as it's called, will occur about 4 minutes later. Maximum G loads on the crew. Just moments after that, for a short period of time, the command to open the parachutes always occurs about 15 minutes before touchdown, in this case about 5:43 a.m. Central Time, and the Soyuz will gently descend under the large orange and white main parachute to a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 5:57 a.m. Central Time, 6:57 a.m. Eastern Time.
Moscow Station, space to ground 1, go ahead, Sergei. The video hardware is off, and data will be on OCA. I'm performed the closeout steps per the radiogram. 4309. Copy.
So our video of the Soyuz backing away from the International Space Station just about complete for the moment as it fades quickly from view. The International Space Station and Soyuz now currently flying 260 miles over the western Pacific Ocean. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage of the undocking of the Soyuz MS-21. We'll be back in about 2 hours at 4:45 a.m. Central Time, 5:45 a.m. Eastern Time for deorbit burn and landing coverage through the time that the crew is extracted from the descent module of the Soyuz vehicle on the steppe of Kazakhstan. Just to recap, the Soyuz undocking on time at 2:34 a.m. Central, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time, as Artemyev Matveev and Korsakov begin the journey home to wrap up 195 days in space. For Artemyev, 561 days on his 3 flights, this concluding the first flights for Matveev and Korsakov. So we'll see you back here in a couple of hours for deorbit and landing coverage. In the meantime, have a good morning. This is Mission Control Houston.